You hold the key to your life, but sometimes it feels out of reach. Welcome to The Key Code, the podcast for anyone balancing big dreams with bigger fears. Together we'll navigate the self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and internal conflicts that have kept you playing small and uncover the confidence that's been within you all along. This is your space to feel safe, supported, and inspired to become the person who says no without guilt, speaks their truth freely, and moves through life with purpose and self-trust. Here, we'll explore the keys and codes that unlock true self-leadership, the kind that allows you to move through life with clarity, confidence, and ease. Let's unlock it together. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Key Code, Self-Leadership Unlocked. I am your host, Kiara, and today I am here with one of my beautiful and amazing clients, Sonia. Hello.
Hi.
In this episode, and within this podcast, we get into the keys and the codes that unlock your self-leadership, unlock who you are, unlock where you want to go. And the guests that I have on this podcast, we massively tap into what they've struggled with, but not just staying in struggle. We look at the codes that they've picked up along the way to find their key to unlock that self-leadership, to unlock that next level for themselves. So today we're going to be talking to Sonia, who has been through a lot. She's definitely picked up a lot of codes, I'd say, in the last couple of years. We always try and find like our key to unlocking whatever it is we want to unlock for ourselves, right? And a lot of the time that key can get misplaced and it can get lost without us even realizing. And obviously trying to find that key again and trying to find that spark or whatever it is, it can become very difficult when you're doing that journey alone. So the first thing I want to ask you is, you've been in the UK now for 7 years, 8 years?
Yeah, 7 to 8 years
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I want to ask you about leadership itself. So leadership back in Pakistan versus leadership now as the woman that you are today living in London, how does that differ? What have you found are the main differences? What have you had to do to overcome any beliefs or like limits that you felt you had along the way?
I think back home, like I moved here when I was 17, going on to 18. So
Mhm.
being like a cute little teenager to like, adulting into a proper, grown woman. And in terms of cultures, so different. For me back home, I probably cannot even go out by myself to just go grab a coffee or like walk down the street. When I first came to the UK, I remember I started my journey off in Norwich, where my university was to begin with, really understanding that I was such a different person back home and how I had to change and evolve to be this other person. And I do sometimes feel that when I go back home like once or twice a year. I navigate through, adjusting to those cultures and norms and in that sort of way. And then coming back here and almost having kind of like a different identity, I would say. For me, I do definitely feel I'm a lot more empowered here. Not that I'm saying that any woman in Pakistan, they're not empowered. It's just that you have a lot more autonomy here, a lot more freedom to do what you want. And in terms of like the connections I've made here with women is a lot more like, I would say, being more liberated, understanding that you can do a lot of things. Let's say starting your own channel, starting your own little podcast, compared to, I would say, back home. Even though I do see that a lot of women are starting that journey, so like a clap to them, but still I do feel there is that sort of a difference.
I was going to ask you, what's the first thing you did when you came to the UK? What's the first thing you did that made you feel like you had that autonomy, like made you feel empowered? Do you remember?
Well, okay. It was a lot of struggle at the start, which then made
Yeah.
me realize and use that as my power. So I remember when I first came here, I came by myself. My parents did not come
Wow.
to drop me. My dad was going through a tumor. So he was in the US and he had to go through his surgery. So me literally with my two suitcases navigating through life. And it was a lot of struggle at the start. Didn't know how to cook, did not know anything about laundry, did not know how
Mm.
to clean my room, make my bed, nothing. And I remember like we don't even have like duvets back home, by the way. It's a
Yep.
completely different situation because it's quite hot back home. So I remember like going to Primark, getting my first ever little sweet little, bed set, getting some like cutlery and food. I did not cook for a good month. I lost so
Wow.
much weight. I was on meal deals. I was literally eating out of like this small little canteen that we had. And I remember I was so sick one day and I do not even know like what medicine to take, whatever. You can get medication back home quite easily compared to here, right? And I
Mhm.
remember just going and sitting on this hill and crying, like absolutely just tearful crying. And I was like, I'm never gonna navigate this life. And then I got myself back up. Like, I think that was my first little, no, you need to do this by yourself. And I got back up. I went to Tesco, got whatever groceries I need, came back home, learned how to boil pasta, mind you. Okay.
Ooh.
I made my first ever meal.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, that's the first step. Then I was always on top of my academic game. That is for sure. For me, that was on track. But I feel that just growing as a person over here was, I feel like I would be a different person if I was still back home.
Yeah. Now you've just completed a master's, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
literally.
Unbelievable. I
Yeah,
mean, talking about the fact that you 7 years ago couldn't boil pasta
quite
to
literally.
now being a master's in the
Yeah,
UK,
yeah.
insane. How did you navigate that? Like, how has that felt, that whole process?
You know what's crazy? I do always have like my doubtful moments. Like I have really worked on myself specifically the last 2 years, specifically my confidence, my leadership, me bringing discipline into my life, all of that. But I still remember the first day I started my master's. By the way, my dream school, UCL, right? Everyone dreams to go to
Okay.
UCL. Like everyone's like, I want to go to UCL. And I got into like both my dream schools, King's and UCL. Chose UCL. I remember my first ever lecture. I was sitting there. I was like, no, I'm not meant to be here. These people are so smart. Like they're asking such smart
Mhm.
questions. I walk up to the lecturer and I'm like, I need to have a talk with you. And she's like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? I was like, I think you made a mistake. And quote unquote, I literally said that to her. I was like, I think you made a mistake. I don't think I'm meant to be here. And she sat me down. She's like, no, we saw something in you. That's why you're here. And you need to
Mm.
show and prove it to us that you belong here. And I did exactly that. I proved myself wrong over and over and over again. I remember handing my first ever assignment, got an amazing grade on that. And I was like, okay, look,
Yeah.
you can do it. You just need to put in the work to do it.
That feeling of not belonging, people who have been in the UK from the time they were born have that feeling.
Yeah,
So I can only imagine how difficult that was for you also, obviously being not fairly new to the country at the time, but still things are so different here to the way they are in Pakistan.
very.
So
Yeah,
even navigating the education system, and this is a master's we're talking about, like this is
yeah,
big stuff, right?
yeah.
So how did you feel after having that conversation with that lecturer that told you no, like there is space for you here and there always will be space for you?
I did not believe her. Like they were talking about things. I did child development, right?
Yeah.
And mind you, I was also working with children for like about 2.5 years before that. I was like,
Mm,
no, these phrases and words that she's using. I remember it was a lecture on like imitation or something. I was like, I don't know anything. I gave myself a week. I went to the library and got every possible book on that topic. And I sat
mm,
there and just out of curiosity, I was reading and I was reading and I was reading. And at one point, I was like, oh, okay, this is not that bad. For me, I started looking at education and educating myself more from a perspective of I just want to be an opinionated person. When I'm sitting on a table with people, I do not want to be that person who is so obsessed, like on TikTok, people and their, appearances and makeup and stuff. I want to know about like current affairs. I want to know about political point of views. I want to know about like psychology, history, all of that. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to treat it as this ladder I need to climb. I'm just going
mm,
to educate myself. And that's the only thing I want to do. And I did that with the utmost truth to myself. And I achieved it. So I think it's about being like a little more confident in yourself more than
mm,
anything. You're not here to make groundbreaking discoveries. You're just here to have a little fun, enjoy life, enjoy the moments of life. I would say make a little difference in someone or someone else's life. For me, is the
mm.
most important thing. But in terms of, I would say, navigating culture, the cultural differences, I love, love, love my home country from the bottom of my heart. Like going back home is the best thing in the world. Yes,
Yeah.
do I believe that certain like cultural perspectives do hold us down, but I do see the new generation the Gen Zs, breaking those stereotypes and moving forward. There was once a time where women got married when they were 16 or 18. That is changing. You have women back home who were not running businesses, did not have jobs, and they're doing all of that. But there is a level of independence, I would say, over here
Mm.
that you don't have over there. You can't live, I mean, at least I don't know any woman who's living by herself there with her own rules. I don't see anyone there who picks up their keys and in the middle of the night and just like walking out on the streets. Unfortunately, we just don't have that there, which I really enjoy here.
So you enjoy the opportunity here.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You kind of said it yourself when you were talking about like reading. You started reading loads of books on the topic that you were doing your master's on, right? And that literally embodies starting before you feel ready,
Yeah.
right? Because technically, you said you wanted to be that person that was having conversations, not the person sat on their phone at the back of the room, like not the person that was self obsessed, and you had other things going on, right? Technically, when you first started reading that whatever book, like whatever first book it was that you picked out, you weren't the person that could have these in-depth conversations about these like political things. Yeah, you might have been able to scrape the surface, but you wouldn't have been able to have an in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
So how was that? Because you started before you were ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you were just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I know I'm going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
But you had no idea how long it was going to take. It could have taken you 100 books
Yeah.
until you got to the stage where you were satisfied of I can have a proper conversation. How was that journey of, let's say, like opening up that first book and kind of not knowing what was going to happen,
Yeah.
what path you were going to go on? How was that?
The only thing I thought of was, even if
Yeah.
I learn one fact today, I know I can do it. And I think for me, I was a very gullible person. So, when friends, navigating life, I was so gullible. And I remember that one thing got me so far. I remember, like, I said to myself one day, I want to be like disgustingly educated.
Yeah.
I'm not there, but at least I try to. And as long as you're trying in your life, no matter what you're doing, I think that's the most important thing. So for me, like, even if I know that I've put a podcast and I'm just like doing my laundry or like just like journaling or something, as long as I'm learning something from that, it's not the whole ladder that you have to look at. It's the small steps you take towards the end goal, And that's
Yeah.
exactly what I did. I did not look at everything as a big pile of, I need to achieve all of this in like one go.
It's not even just learning what you're hearing, it's applying it then to your own life and your own circle. With a podcast, let's say, as you just said, podcast and laundry, right? That's a great thing to do. But it doesn't mean that you have to internalize everything that they're saying. You take what they're saying and you make that apply to you in your situation.
Yeah.
And that's what takes you that one step further.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not something that everyone is able to do, but I think that's what everyone would love to be able to do. Rather than internalize things from other people, you want to be able to take what they say and make it your own. Now the journey that you're on, where you're actually finding what you love, you're finding what makes you happy, you're fully finding your feet and just being that really confident person that I think you've always wanted to be as well. And I think I've seen that through obviously some of the work that we've done, because you've already done a lot of bringing yourself up, and because you've had to, right? You've literally been thrown in the deep end of, okay, figure it out. So I think that belief has had to be there from quite a young age. But some of the self-belief work that we've done in the recent kind of like couple of months, how have you found that in comparison to the self-belief work that you felt like you were doing before in terms of uni even? Have you felt like that's helped you grow more?
I would say I was doing everything in terms of like the podcast, the journaling, all of that. But I didn't really
Yeah.
tap into my inner self. I did not tap into what was actually hurting. You can't put a bandage on your past. You can't
Yeah.
put a bandage on your childhood. You need to be able to work around it, to work around your fears, to, navigate that, to then be able to even grow in those other domains. Yes, it's great if you're putting in the work, you're going to the gym, you're taking care of your physical health, but you need to also figure out what's happening in here. And I think that's exactly what we did, where there were so many times where I was like, wait, I did not know I was feeling that way, or I did not know my
Mhm.
childhood brought those, memories, or I did not know that I felt this way about myself. And we did a lot of like childhood trauma work as well, where, that really helped me. And I remember this one specific session that we had where I cried for like 2 days. And I was like, why am I
Wow.
crying? That was in the past. But I did not even realize that it was so overwhelming. And I was carrying all that baggage. And I did not even realize that.
Because that stuff is so deep rooted,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
And you're in a situation now where you're doing so many things, right? Like,
Yeah.
again, recently got married. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, masters, like you just completed that.
Yeah.
That's huge. You're navigating finding jobs or what you really want to do for work and what you want to do as a career long term.
Yeah.
Like you're doing all these different things and you're building all these different relationships. And it's only normal that when you're faced with challenges, obviously you're being faced with higher level challenges now because you're at a higher level, right? You're a very different person. You're a very amazing person. So of course the challenges that you face are going to be on a higher level. But of course, some of those beliefs are going to come to the surface because these challenges are challenges at the end of the day, right? They're
Yeah.
made to challenge you.
Mhm.
And I think that's why the work that we've done, and also you being so willing to accept that there are issues,
Yeah.
honestly, it's massive because that is what allows you. That's the reason that you were crying for a whole 2 days because you accepted, like, you accepted the fact that things weren't 100% okay. But
Yeah.
until you accept, you can't move forward.
Yeah.
And now you've had that 2 days. You've had that 2 days where you've fully just let it out. You've been able to think about and understand what's going on a deeper level. And now look at you.
You know, one or two of the sessions that we've had together, I have felt that like growth within me as a person. Like there were a couple of things that were bothering me. These traumas or like this anxiety, it has like a sneaky way of creeping in, like during a specific moment and then creeping out. And
Yeah.
for me, after like one or two sessions that we did, it would creep in, but I had built a way, a coping mechanism to be like, nah, you need to go back where you belong.
Mm.
And I think that is so important because things will stay with you. That makes you who you are. Your wounds, your problems, your stress, everything, they make you who you are. They make you strong. You just need to learn how to cope with it. You know, you need to learn how to take a deep breath and be like, no, just a different person now.
As you said before, it was a lot of kind of up in the air, crying, not knowing why you're crying. And then
Yeah.
it was a lot of that cycle. And now you handle things so effortlessly.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see because even though you know when something's getting to you, and that's the amazing thing is that you can tell when something's about to trigger you. And that's really important because as you said, you can either then choose to stop it and be like, nope, I'm not doing this, or you can choose to figure it out and understand it more. But that's your choice now. You're the
Yeah.
one that's in control and you're the one that gets to make that decision.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I think it was a lot of things were just happening and you would just have to kind of like as you feel
Yeah.
like wait and be like, oh my God, what's going on? So now that you're fully in control, it's incredible to see. It really is. And you're doing so well. I wanted to talk about manifestation with you as well, because I think that's something that you said is quite a big part of your life and has been quite a big part of your life. So speak to me more about that. Like how has manifestation manifested in your life?
I used to think it was like hocus pocus,
Yeah.
not for me. It's like a lot of women on TikTok be like, "Oh, you should like write a letter to yourself." Da 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 da. I was like, "What? I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. I'm not gonna do that." Until I actually did. I sat down and I wrote a letter to myself as if I've achieved everything I needed to achieve in 2025 and how that woman would look like, how she would behave, how she would dress, you know, what her mindset would be like, what kind of discipline, like to the T. And one of my biggest things was, I want to get married. I want to get married to this sweet, lovely boy. And I quite literally remember 2 months. I found my husband. Like 2 months after I wrote that letter, I found my husband. And I literally, I looked and I was like, yeah, I'm getting married to this guy. That's it. And I got married to him, and he's been everything I've ever dreamed of, to be honest with you. That
Mm.
happened. And then for me, I was like, oh, I'm gonna achieve a 2-1 or whatever in my master's or like a first class. And through and throughout, you know, I never budged. I was doing so well throughout. And a couple of other things were like, you know, I this is how I want to look. There were some physical aspects to it as well. You know, I want to dress
Yeah.
this way. I want to stop dressing like XYZ. For me, I wanted to wear a little more modest clothes, whatever. Everything just started like falling into place. And you know, even my routine now, like effortlessly, I wake up in the morning, I spring up in the morning. Even if I'm having a bad day, I do those things because I've incorporated them and I've practiced them to the
Yeah.
T. I would sit there and I would envision that woman. I would envision her like she was me. The way I
Powerful.
spoke, to the books I read, to the podcast. Yes, I do also think the podcast really helped me. Like every morning, Mel Robbins, Grace Beverly, or like
Oh
Diary of the
yeah.
CEO. That's it. So yeah, like that's how I manifested my way through 2025. It's going good so far, to be fair.
I mean, with manifestation, right? Obviously, so you said you wrote that letter.
Yeah,
So you wrote that letter end of 2024, right? And you
yeah,
wanted your 2025 to go a certain way, and
yeah,
that's what you wrote the letter about.
yeah,
There must have still been challenges that you faced in 2025. So even though things have
100%.
gone amazingly, right?
Yeah.
And you've been able to show up for yourself and all these sorts
Yeah.
of things and make these things happen.
Yeah.
You still must have had loads of challenges, I'm assuming,
100%.
right, throughout
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you feel like you've faced this year personally? Even if it's like an internal conflict that you've had with
Yeah.
yourself, what are some of those challenges that you feel like almost, I guess, threw you over the edge, made you question whether things were going to work out or not?
I would say I lost a lot of friends this year, which I was not
Okay.
anticipating. And you know how it's just good to have a good group of girlfriends, and I kind of lost that. There were times where I was doubting myself. I felt like there were hurdles of insecurity, just maybe like within myself, the way I look. Maybe I'm not clever enough, smart enough. There were days where I would just sit there and I would have depressive moments as well. Like, it's not all like rainbows and butterflies when it comes to
Yeah.
manifestation. And you are a work in progress. But I would say there are some personal problems that I even had, which I probably thought I would never overcome. In terms of like problems with like family and stuff, I just never thought that I would be able to navigate through that. But a little bit of hope and a little bit of bringing myself back up and being like, no, you can do this was really
Mm.
helpful. And I think for me, things that really helped me were what I'd incorporated the discipline and the routine that never really
Mm.
let me get to the rock bottom that I was probably in a year or two ago. If it was like the slow mornings, making sure that I give myself that grace and I don't speak down on myself. That is one thing I really tried to not do. Or just putting on something that would just elevate my brain and like my brain chemistry, and like even like listening to stuff like I think it's Gabor Mate.
I mean, losing like girlfriends,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've actually seen a lot circling around that recently. Of you do have to lose friends if you want to reach your next level.
Yeah.
Normally comes with losing a few people who are quite close to you, right? With losing those friends, not to go like fully into detail of it, but what happened? Was it something that you felt was within you that changed, that you kind of needed to distance yourself, or how did that even come about?
There are a lot of changes in my life that happened this year, which then made
Mm.
me realize who is actually going to stick with me and who's not gonna. So many people kind of like leave your life and you lose a lot of friends when you get married. Like, I was not doing anything differently. Yes, my priority also was another person now, but that did not matter. I was not gonna like dodge calls or like be any different. But I don't know what it is, to be honest. I wish I would love to read up about that a lot more, but I did lose a lot of friends after I got married. But even before, I wanted to be the person who would not gossip, who would not
Mm.
talk down on other people, because for me, that was taking away energy from me, and I just did not want to be that person anymore. For me, I was like, okay, I want to talk to you, for example, Kiara, I want to talk to you about like life. I want to talk to you about how you're doing so amazing in your life, how you have this amazing channel, what else you've got going on for you, so I can learn from you and you can learn from me. I do not want
Mm.
to talk about, I don't know, Brittany at the end of the street who's probably got Botox. Of I do not want to know. It's not.
Britney
So that once I
Spears.
stopped engaging in those talks, I slowly started realizing that, okay, these people don't really want to talk to me anymore because we're not on the same, I wouldn't say the same level, but on the same path.
Yeah.
You
Did you
know?
feel like you had more time mentally for yourself when once you were no longer with those
A
people? Do you
hundred
feel like you
percent.
had a lot more mental space to do whatever you wanted to do or think about whatever you wanted to think about?
100%. I would say that once that whole gossiping thing was over, I'd love to talk, by the way. I love to talk to my girlfriends. I love to talk to them about random stupid stuff. But
Mm.
for me, I was also learning whilst I was talking. So one of my greatest dears, bestest friend, she has
Okay,
taught me
nice.
so much. So I compared my conversations that I've had with her compared to conversations I've had with other people in my life. And with her, it was
Mm.
almost always about, oh, I'm applying to this job, this is how it's going. Sonia, you should really look into this. Or Sonia, you should like, and I was learning so much from her. She loves to read, by the way. So she would just sit there. She was like, oh, did you know? And like, I would be like, wow, okay. So I
Yeah.
would enjoy her company so much. And it's not until like I kind of got on the same pathway of growth that I
Yeah.
realized that, okay, it's not about gossip. She's not about talking down on people. So for us, it was a lot more intellectual conversations that I learned from. I had a lot more time and energy for that compared to the whole load of other stuff that was going on that was just like dragging my energy down.
I'm glad you've been so open and honest about that, because I feel like there's so many people who are probably currently going through that transition kind of phase where they don't want. Let's be real. When you have friends and they're friends that you know you can do that silly stuff with, you don't really want to lose them, right?
Yeah,
Because losing that child part of you that you want to hold on to. And I
yeah,
think that's why a lot of people stay in friendships they don't necessarily align with, because they're
yeah,
holding on to that part of them that's the fun, young part. But I feel like you've literally shown as well that you can still be fun, young, and have all those parts of you and be married, do a master's,
yeah,
and not have to still surround yourself with those sorts of people. I think that's where, as well, like what I talk about massively is do it yourself. You don't need other people to bring that side out of you.
100%,
Bring that side out of yourself.
100%,
Whether, even if it's you going on like a solo date, you could go to a
100%.
trampoline park if you wanted to.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Do it yourself. Bring that energy out of yourself by yourself.
But the thing is, that is all great. I 100% agree with you. But what happens is when you're around people, okay, I love hanging out with my friends. I don't know how many times a week you hang out with your friends, but for me, if I love you, I'm hanging out with you like 3 times a week. So,
Yeah.
but I cannot hang out with that brings my energy down and her
Yeah.
energy seeps into mine. So, because of that, I try to choose the people that I hang out with very wisely. And I would say one thing is your head even navigates that there's something wrong. And I remember that there were certain people that I would hang out with and I would just feel so insecure. Like there
Mm.
was nothing that they would say that would be like so mean, but it was just like I was just not feel like I would fit in, or I would feel like I would never be good enough. I first thought I was like maybe that's my insecurity. I started hanging out with other people and I was like no, I don't think that's my insecurity. I think it's kind of the way they make me feel. Feeling a
That
little
was also that was on you to put yourself into a different circle,
yeah.
because if you didn't do
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
you wouldn't be able to compare.
100%.
You probably would have stayed in that other circle for
Yeah.
probably the rest of your life. So again, it was on you
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
make that decision,
For
even though it
sure.
was scary, to put yourself in that new circle
Yeah.
so that you could make that comparison,
100%.
you
100%.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really, really important, because
Yeah.
again, that would have been something that would have been scary for you, right? Do it and see what happens. And now look, you've
Mm.
been able to figure that out for yourself of what works for you, what aligns with you, and what makes you feel like your best self,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is really important. We've spoken about like discipline, we've spoken about like your morning routine, and we've spoken about that letter, right? That letter that you wrote end of last year. Do you feel like you're fully embodying the person that you wanted to be in December last year now?
Not fully. I
Okay.
would say 70%, but I have like slacked a bit. And I think it's after I submitted my dissertation, I was like, screw the world. I remember like these peak months, man. I still look back at some of like the TikToks I've made during that time. I was like, you were peaking then. It was all about like I will wake up in the morning and I would literally be like, da 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 da. This is my life, and I love it. I would like write in my journal, like even if it was a bad day. Like I've had bad days, of course, but you know what? If it was, I'm very like susceptible to like crying. Like you would just like throw a rock at me, like a pebble at me, I would cry. I started to like navigate that as well, and I was like, no, you know what? Like this is the little speck in my life that's wrong and everything is so beautiful. Gratitude was so so important. Like I would wake up in the morning and be like,
Mhm.
I am grateful for being this person. I'm grateful for, living here. I'm grateful for having such lovely parents and siblings. I'm so grateful. And just me looking around at the blessings God has given me, I would just be like, okay, let's kickstart our day. There's nothing that's going to hold me down. We're all in our social media era, right? So just following women who I would just look up to, not in
Yeah.
competition with. It's very important to like highlight that we're not in competition with anybody but ourselves. So just looking at those women and be like, oh, you know what? Like she incorporates this into her life. How can I do that differently and add that? And I started realizing that would elevate myself even more and more. And habit stacking was a big thing. So for
Yeah.
me, it was just be like, I'm gonna try to practice this for a couple of weeks and slowly it would just incorporate itself and I probably would feel that something's missing if I haven't done it. I think before this year, it was a lot more of writing that, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. rather than doing. Putting stuff into small, attainable, achievable goals. I'm not gonna write this New Year's that I'm gonna go to the moon and come back. No. I'm not gonna write things that are not attainable. Like just
Yeah.
small things that, gratification of just me like taking it off of my list is also so important. I would always say I'm a work in progress, but I do believe that I'm a better version of myself that I was before.
Are you going to write a letter to yourself then at the end of this year? Because I feel like
100%.
there's going to be two letters, right? There could be a letter that you write at the end of this year reflecting on the year and almost like a letter back to your 2024 self. And then there's going to be a
Yeah.
letter for next year of what you want to achieve in 2026.
Yeah, that's a good
And
idea
that
actually.
you've done a lot of the things that you said you wanted to do. And I know you
Yeah.
said not everything is done yet, but you need to acknowledge that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You can't leave this year without acknowledging the fact that you've actually set out and done most of the things and
yeah,
become the person that you said you wanted to become. So now that's something that every year you get to look forward to,
yeah, yeah, for
which
sure.
is nice because again, that's something for you. It's not for you and your husband. It's not for you and your friends. That's just for you.
Yeah.
There's one more question. Sonia, would you say that you are the leader of your own life?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, that's a great
Yes.
answer.
There were a lot of times before that I would put other people first before my life, my thoughts, my beliefs. And now it's always, what would Sonia, like before anything, any situation, I always ask myself, what would Sonia want to do? How would Sonia feel? Would Sonia feel bad? Just like asking myself, like I was another person.
Yeah.
And just leading on the basis of what I think and putting myself first in any and every situation. I think leadership to people is quite different. Some people believe that leadership is making money. Some people believe that leadership is like
Yeah.
having XYZ followers. For me, leadership is almost always about how I feel in a situation and how I put myself first. As long as I'm mastering that and making myself feel safe, because, I would not before. And I was so gullible and susceptible to like people just clouding my judgment in my head that now I'm like, just mental clarity. How do I want to navigate my life? And that's it.
Leadership is daily. It's a daily practice. It's not something that you just wake up and all of a sudden you're a leader. Like it's a daily practice. And as you
100%.
said, it's a work in progress situation.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
But I'm very glad that you are in the space that you're in now and you're doing so well. So well.
Yeah.
Probably better than you think you're doing, to be honest. Like from an outside perspective, you really are. To see the change in you is so inspiring.
Thank you. I
Genuinely.
appreciate that.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the
No
pod and just talking
worries.
about your life, just talking about like just being real because this is what people need to hear. They
Hmm.
need to hear that it's not always up, even though this
No.
year has been one of the best years of your life,
Yeah, 100%.
and it's navigating through that. So thank you so much for coming
No
on.
worries.
Just let people know where they can find you if you have any like social links or anything that if people want to reach out and ask you any questions about the episode or anything you've spoken about.
So I'm mostly like active on my TikTok. So it's
Mhm.
Sonia_Zahid on my TikTok.
I'll be linking everything. But yeah, just if you want to reach out to Sonia or ask her any questions about anything that she's gone through, anything that you're currently going through that you feel like she can relate to, please reach out to her and obviously reach out to me as well. And that is it. Thank
Yay!
you so
Lovely
much.
rap.
All right. See you on the next episode,
See
guys.
you.
Bye.